Hello everyone. Any government across time and space has claimed that its relations with the outside world are aimed at ensuring national interests, the interests of the people it represents. One may ask what the national interests of Uzbekistan are, to be a principal source for its foreign policy. We may refer to a few aspects distinct to the new course the country has opted for in its dealings with other nations and the international community in general. It seems that Tashkent has completely forsaken confrontational approach in its relations with the country's neighbors. Economic factors, labor migration, development issues noticeably overwhelm other considerations. And apparently, there is little room for emotions and feelings in the foreign policy, which has arguably been the case for the most part in the world history. Yet it remains to be seen how successful the Uzbek diplomacy has proved so far on this front, and what challenges it will face down the road. We are launching a special project on our channel to address these and other related issues, find out more from diplomats, government officials, negotiators. So be with us to listen to policymakers discussing firsthand the developments in the country's foreign strategy. Insightful conversations will include those via video conference or Zoom. As a sign of the country's new path, Uzbekistan was elected full-fledged member of the United Nations Human Rights Council, a body with which the country has had a thorny relationship up until recently. As a result, Uzbekistan's president delivered a speech to its 46th session. President Mirziyoyev became the first CIS leader to speak at this leading global forum on human rights. Addressing the session, the Uzbek president stressed that securing fundamental human rights and freedoms will continue to be central to his reform agenda. He informed the international community that special emphasis in the country will be placed on the protection of the rights of women, youth, persons with special needs. The Uzbek leader came up with a number of initiatives and proposals and revealed the country's plans to further the human rights issues. We decided to ask Uzbek diplomats abroad for their comment on the speech. So let's have a look at what Vladimir Norov, Secretary General of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and Ulug'bek Lapasov, Uzbekistan's permanent representative at the United Nations office in Geneva, have said in particular.
The proposal of the head of Uzbekistan to establish a regional council regarding the self-realization of persons with disabilities, to hold a women leaders dialogue of Central Asian states, and a regional women's business forum in Uzbekistan, and to organize a world conference on youth rights are as relevant and timely as ever. As your Secretary General, I would like to emphasize that the Secretariat of our organization is ready to take the most active part in implementing the initiative of the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev.
The others, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, was very well received by Geneva-based international community and diplomatic corps here. The perception of Uzbekistan is drastically changing in Geneva, and with his speech, the president sent a clear message to the international community. Democratic reforms have become irreversible and aimed at establishing a new Uzbekistan, an open Uzbekistan, modern Uzbekistan, standing firm in ensuring the rights and freedom of every individual, as well as develop a truly strong civil society. In our terms, the permanent mission of Uzbekistan has already started the practical implementation of the President initiatives in cooperation with all relevant stakeholders and international partners in Geneva.
Mr. Lapasov was one of those instrumental in leading Uzbek diplomacy on this front. The Uzbek president's speech was covered extensively in the foreign media as well. We have selected a couple of articles to have a general understanding of what it looked like. In its article on the topic, the Austrian Society magazine noted the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, became a real opening at the forum. The progress on human rights issues achieved in this country in recent years is not only impressive but also inspiring, the piece read. As the article informs, during his speech, Uzbekistan's president came up with a number of ambitious initiatives, which indicates that the country will not stop implementing its reform agenda. The Uzbek leader, according to the author, announced willingness to adopt additional obligations across the board on human rights.
As I said earlier, our special project includes conversations with high-ranking diplomats, government officials. For our first session, we have invited a respected diplomat and statesman, currently the first deputy chairman of the Senate of Uzbekistan's parliament, Mr. Sadiq Safayev. So let's proceed on to our conversation with our first guest. Welcome to our studio, welcome to our channel.
Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be first guest in your brand new program, and I wish every success.
Mr. Vice Chairman, last December, Uzbekistan's president addressed the Uzbek parliament and the people. The president discussed Uzbekistan's foreign policy. One of the key points was the need to, as he said, the need to upgrade the country's foreign policy concept, to change foreign policy. Do you really believe Uzbekistan's foreign policy needs a change? In the first place, has it changed for the last 4 years? Mr. Mirziyoyev has been president of this country?
First of all, for me it's clear that today we have new image of Uzbekistan worldwide. It has been transformed, it's changed dramatically, and today we might state Uzbekistan has been recognized by the world as a reforming society, oriented to the dialogue with immediate neighbors and ready to develop developed partnership with all countries. And I think that during the last pandemic, Uzbekistan foreign policy demonstrated its new ability to address the main issues of contemporary world. By the way, I'd like just to draw your attention to the fact that first time in the history, Uzbekistan was not only recipient of humanitarian aid from international society, but provided humanitarian assistance to 11 countries abroad, including one European country. Never before Uzbekistan foreign policy and policy of its leader was so proactive, and the reaction of world community was so positive. 2 resolutions of United Nations was adopted. Situation in Central Asia, it has been drastically changed in the 4 years. Hostility, kind of a rivalry, suspicion, mistrust, all been replaced by the readiness to dialogue. Dialogue was resumed after the many years of absence of any kind of multilateral contacts. Today we have such an institutions like consultative meetings of the leader of Central Asian countries, and it's a very, very important element of stabilizing the situation in the region, resolving existing problems like water management issues, economic cooperation, and security issues, etc. And today we might say that it's also one of the most vivid outcomes from the renewed Uzbekistan's foreign policy. I remember that during the summit between President Mirziyoyev and then President of Kazakhstan, Nazarbayev, leader of the Kazakhstan said that, you know, we've been waiting for such kind of a vision from Uzbekistan for 25 years. And now we're happy that Uzbekistan is going to open to its immediate neighbors, and it's very important for every country in Central Asia. Changing of character of Uzbekistan diplomacy. Today is completely different It's not traditional, let's say, saloon type of diplomacy. It's very pragmatic and, let me apply such a term, economized diplomacy, addressing the immediate pragmatic needs of the country, domestic policy. Never before, I've been ambassador, and I never before remembered that the diplomats, ambassadors, visited every region of Uzbekistan, all remote corners of Uzbekistan, being there and trying to understand the needs, hopes, expectations of the people, not only in the capital, but in the provinces as well. It's very important for diplomats to understand the real trends and real situation and to get the information not from the papers sent by Minister of Foreign Affairs, which might be good, but the getting, being on the place, on the field, and talking to the people is much better source of information. And I think that such a shift in the character of Uzbek diplomacy was very important for bringing some kind of efficiency to this work.
Mr. Safayev, you have suggested Uzbekistan has embarked on a new foreign policy. And what place, if any, does it attach to interaction with international institutions, the United Nations in particular?
From the beginning, from first step, after his election, President Mirziyoyev paid special attention to the human rights issue. And it was done not just to get applause from abroad, not just to maybe please some of our partners in international organizations and non-governmental international organizations. It comes from its, and I can tell it because I know it's first-hand information, that it is internal belief to the fact that without guaranteeing the genuine human rights and freedoms, there cannot be sustainable development of Uzbekistan, and we cannot achieve neither of our goals. It is in our profound own interest to guarantee the protection of human rights and liberties in Uzbekistan, be it in a gender issue, religious issues, rights of minorities, rights of disabled people, all complex of human rights. Only people of the country where human rights is respected might be creative and might having, let's say, at least freedom of entrepreneurship to contribute to economic growth. And after all, we've seen the experience of many other countries where the human rights violation led to the chaos in the country. And that's why what's been done in Uzbekistan, it's not only for, let's say, foreign partners. It comes from our understanding of national interests, domestic interests of this country. And that's why the election of Uzbekistan, by the way, first, if I'm not mistaken, to my knowledge, it's the first country among the CIS countries who been elected to this very important body. It, to my mind, first of all, it reflects, let's say, recognition of by international communities, the achievements of Uzbekistan in this field during the recent 4 years. Secondly, it's of course upgrades the level of Uzbekistan's image worldwide. We now once again can see that today we have new Uzbekistan. Before I was, let's say, when I was ambassador, human rights issue was most painful and more sensitive for us. And we Uzbek diplomats always try to avoid the discussion of this topic during the international conferences, and somehow even in Uzbekistan there was a perception that it might undermine the internal stability. But today it's completely different, and we glad to have an international dialogue on this issue because we understand that via dialogue we can improve our situation inside. International experience and attention to this very important field or subject is very dimension. Is very, very important. And of course the election of Uzbekistan means not only the recognition and some honor, which indeed is an honor, but it's obligation as well. Now I think that Uzbekistan must, as a member of this body, the Human Rights Council of United Nations, be even more proactive in both promoting the human rights inside and in, participating in international projects, in developing the multilateral projects in the field of human rights and liberties.
As a student of international politics and journalism, I have observed a slight change. Uzbekistan is covered in the foreign media, in the global press. Can you see that change, first of all? And if yes, what do you think the reasons behind that change?
Let me start from the end of your question. What's behind all this, the factor? I think that it comes from the several factors. First of all, growing role of Central Asia in contemporary world. We've seen the growing interest to Central Asia as a region, not only due to its proximity to Afghanistan, though it's also very important. And by the way, speaking about the main results of renewed Uzbek policy, we should never forget that new attitude towards Afghanistan as an integral part of Central Asia was also one of the outcome of the new vision of the Uzbekistan leadership. I think it's completely right because we should stop to see to the region using the old maps which stated that Amud area formed kind of a hard border or let's say iron curtain dividing us with Afghanistan. Afghanistan always has been part of Central Asia. It's according to the classic definition of our region done by Alexander von Humboldt. That's why the interest of international press is preordained with a growing role of Central Asia. Secondly, what's going on in Uzbekistan was kind of a surprise to whole world community, because even, let's say, domestically, for instance, we couldn't expect the scale of reforms launched by President Mirziyoyev. And while in the world as a whole, there is a tendency opposite to the reforming, trying to have some protectionist measures in the economy, maybe curtail some democratic processes. In Uzbekistan, all of a sudden, it became one of the leaders of reforming process, both politically and economically. And I think it's also very justifies the growing interest of international media towards Uzbekistan. And we welcome that, because as much as there is a coverage of Uzbekistan, there is a better understanding. And we're happy that now main media sources, BBC, CNN, Deutsche Welle, they're coming back to Uzbekistan. Thank you very much. It was my pleasure to be with you. And in turn, I wish you every success to your new program. And I'm sure that it will be a very important source of information from Uzbekistan to the whole world.
Thank you. Well, this is it for today. Follow us on our channel for discerning conversations and in-depth analyses of Uzbekistan's foreign policy. Have a nice day and a pleasant feminine holiday ahead.